Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, we're going to be going over what you need to know as a Retribution Paladin in this next patch, 11.2.5. This patch is going to introduce, once again, a turbo boost, and then the cartel chips, and we're just going to kind of go over the stuff that you need to know, what you should be focusing your cartel chips on, and of course, just a real quick go over of what this patch and the turbo boost is going to be introducing. Obviously, there's other stuff with this patch as well, but we're going to focus on this. So this patch is on the reset day, October 7th. And what's going to happen on the reset day is just basically the turbo boost gets activated. That means that your gear on Myth Track is going to get extra upgrades, and your gear on Hero Track is going to get extra upgrades. So you can upgrade your gear further from where it is right on the reset day. Now the crests are not uncapped yet, so you won't be able to upgrade all of your gear at once. You will have to make decisions. This kind of thing has kind of gone under the radar. There was a little bit of pushback on this, but with the alpha coming out and Legion Remix around the corner also on patch day, kind of went under the radar. But a lot of people aren't too happy with that because a lot of people would love just to have it uncapped and just upgrade their gear. But of course, that would be a one-day event for many people then, and they do like to spread it out for whatever that's worth. 2 weeks later, so on October 21st, crests become uncapped. So now you can just upgrade all your gear. Also, you can upgrade. So I've purposely just not upgraded any of my crests, my weathered, my carved, my runed. And so you can upgrade all those and just push them into gilded or whatever if you have that unlocked, or you can push them all into runed if you're just a heroic type player or whatever, a hero track type player. You can push those crests up, and then you should be able to just kind of finish out your gear on October 21st. And that's also when the cartel chips are going to come out. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and what gear you should be kind of thinking about getting with your cartel chips. According to the blue post, they're still called cartel chips, even though they were like that was for the casino in the last patch. They're still going to be called cartel chips for this. So let's go ahead and talk more about that and get into the bulk of the video here. So if you want to get hero track items, so let's say you don't do myth track, right? You don't do plus 12 keys, you don't do mythic raid. You still have access to the hero track in the raid gear if you complete the raid on normal, or if you defeat the boss on normal difficulty that you want the gear from. Meaning, if you kill Lumathar on normal, you could get an astral antenna on heroic, which is actually a very valuable piece. So that's how they decided to do it there. And this is something they've been iterating on, but I think they're pretty much standing firm on the myth track stuff. So to get hero track, you only have to defeat it on normal difficulty. So that's something you should know if you are a player that's not as high end. You're like, how does this benefit me? Well, if you can go pug a normal boss, the normal raid's actually pretty easy to pug, I would say. And so you can even all of the raids, let alone the whole raid's pretty easy to pug. So I would definitely recommend trying to do that if you want to upgrade your gear that way. And then, of course, if you do want to get the Mythic raid gear, you do need to defeat the boss on Mythic. Now, however, a lot of good trinkets drop towards the beginning of the raid, and so you might have an opportunity to. So even if your guild's maybe not quite good at cutting edge, or you won't get cutting edge so much later, you still have an opportunity to get some good items from the raid. And the first few bosses of the raid are puggable, although it's not super puggable yet. I do expect there probably will be like another round of nerfs at some point to the raid. However, yeah, a lot of the good stuff is from the beginning. Even the first boss's trinket isn't bad for Ret on Myth Track. So if you have even the first boss killed on Mythic, that could be an option for you. Now, if you want Mythic Plus items, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult for a lot of players, is you actually need to have all plus 12s completed to unlock the Mythic Plus loot. So if you have all plus 10s done, I would say to you that you are capable of getting all 12s done. It might be hard, it might be arduous, but if you do have all 10s done, I do think you can do all 12s. 12s are not that much more difficult than 10s, in my opinion. And honestly, if you can do all 12s, you can probably do all like 14s or something as well. And then it starts to steep up quite a bit from there, in my opinion. But it's doable. Yes, it's going to be a barrier for some people, though. I totally understand that. And that's the only way to get access to the Myth Track loot from the dungeons. So let's go over the actual things that we're thinking about getting. And I broke this up in a few ways here. I have this as single target raid items from Mythic, single target raid items from Heroic raid, so that's just completing it on normal, and single target Mythic plus items. Okay, so if you are focused, and then we're gonna break it up by single target and then by Mythic plus, right? And you'll have to just the variance between that, a cleave. You'll have to do some of your own work there, but I can guide you down the right path pretty easily. So single target raid items. So if you're a raider or you're a Mythic Pluser who's trying to do the raid, or maybe you're filling in on a raid or whatever, single target raid items from the Mythic raid. You would want to be, of course, getting the Interloper's boots. So this is something that's very rare thing. So I have the heroic ones. That's probably the best I'm going to get, because I doubt I'm going to kill Mythic Soul Hunters again, unless I just get into some group towards the end of the tier to get cutting edge or something like that, basically like a pity cutting edge kind of thing. I'm probably not going to get that, so these are probably going to be the best that I have. And of course, even if you do normal, you can get the hero track ones. So these are just good for everything. This isn't the best item. The trinkets will actually make up more DPS than these, especially even if you have normal or LFR versions of these. They're not that much more powerful. Trinkets will make up more of a difference than these, but this is very rare, right? This is so if you do have access to get this on hero track, you probably should, and you don't have it, you should probably get this at least on hero track. If you've killed the Mythic demon hunters and you still don't have it, then you should grab it as well. Again, it's not as big of an upgrade as the trinkets, but it is very rare loot. There's not as much very rare loot. Pretty much every single guy is going to say grab these boots at some point with a cartel chip. So this is going to be true for everything, right? You'd want to have these for Mythic Plus. You want to have these for raid. If you have access, if you've killed them at least normal and you can get the heroic version of these boots, you probably should. That being said, let's move on. Next, probably the best item you can get is actually the trinket off of Dimensius. So let's go to Dimensius on Mythic, and it should be Screams of Forgotten Sky. So right here, this trinket's really good. It's also good in Mythic Plus. We'll talk about it again later. This trinket is actually so good that it's actually pretty, the heroic version, which we'll talk about, is also going to end up being good. So you want that for single target if you can get it. And then you'd also want Araz's Ritual Forge. That's somewhere in here. Did I click on the wrong? Where is it at? Oh, it's right there. Araz's Ritual Forge. If you've killed him on Mythic, so if you're 4 of 8 Mythic or whatever, and you don't have a Ritual Forge for your raid, you can get that. That's also very good. And this is in order of damage. And then Astral Antenna, which is off of Lumathar, which is a bit harder to pug. The easiest ones to pug are the first two easiest to pug are Plexus and then Soulbinder. But Lumathar is only the third boss in that, if you go in that order. And Astral Antenna is also, we're going to mention this in Mythic Plus as well, but it's also good in single target. It's just a very solid trinket, but the Ritual Forge and the Screams are slightly better than the Astral Antenna for single target. It's also worth mentioning that even the first piece here, the Arcano Core, is also a very good option for you, especially if you are mostly a Mythic Plus player. If you're trying to get a little bit of single target damage and you at least killed one boss on Mythic, this is a solid option for single target, but it's not like, I probably wouldn't waste one of my cartel chips on it because it's off the first boss, but it is an option, right? I don't recommend it, but I figured I'd mention it because it is an upgrade over almost all Mythic Plus trinkets, basically except for the Pacemaker. So, I figured I should at least mention it. And then if we were going in order of DPS, the Interlopers might even be lower than that in terms of DPS if you're going from, if you're just going from Heroic to Mythic level of the Interlopers. But, again, they're very rare loot. It might be worth just grabbing it just because of the fact that you're less likely to see it. So when we move to the Heroic raid, so this is, you've at least completed on normal, we still have some really good items in here. So basically the same items, right? So we still have the Interlopers, you could get from doing normal Demon Hunters. So you still might want to grab those, right, for single target. And then basically all the same items except for that Arcano Core that we just mentioned. So again, for single target, the Astral Antenna is still really going to be a good option for you. The Screams of Forgotten Sky is going to be a really good option for you, even the Hero Track one. And then the Araz's Ritual Forge is the other one. Again, for single target, these are all really, really good. Now let's move on to Mythic Plus items. So if you're looking for more Mythic Plus type items, so you don't care about your raid performance or you already have your raid stuff, you're looking for Mythic Plus items. So single target Mythic Plus items Or, oh, yeah, sorry, we skipped that. Single target Mythic, I skipped it because there's not much to talk about here. So for single target Mythic Plus, the only thing you would want to take is basically a pacemaker. I do not recommend this because if you are that worried about your single target in raid, you really should just try to get some of those raid trinkets. But C4 pacemaker is very good and it's comparable to some of them, but you really should be focusing on the raid trinkets if you are looking for more single target damage. So now let's move to Mythic Plus raid items. So these are items that you would use in Mythic Plus that come from raid. So you're a Mythic Plus main, but you do have access to the raid and you want to get some items here. So Mythic Plus items that you would get from raid. So first of all, Lumathar. The antenna is the best trinket in Mythic Plus, and you get it from raid. So even if you can get if you can defeat Loom Mythic, you should do that. Even the hero track version of this is very, very good for Mythic Plus, and you might have to sim it, but it could be better even than the Cursed Stone Idol at the same item level or whatever. It might literally just be based on your sim, but it's very, very good. It's basically the best Mythic Plus trinket. So if you have access to it now, if you have a Myth track Cursed Stone Idol and you can only get a hero track antenna, you know, the Cursed Stone Idol might win out there, but you know, that's going to vary based on, you know, what you have, right? And I don't have one to sim it directly right now or anything like that for this video, but Astral Antenna, really good Mythic Plus trinket. It's very early in the raid. Even a hero version of this is going to be pretty good for you. But if you already, now here's the other option though. If you already have like a Myth track Stone Idol and a Myth track Pacemaker, then it might not be worth getting, right? You might want to send it on something else. But it is worth mentioning how good of a trinket this is. Screams of Forgotten Sky is also very good for Mythic Plus. This is one that, again, not many people are going to have access to this on Mythic. And, you know, Cutting Edge, right? You have to have Cutting Edge to get this. But if you do have Cutting Edge, you need to get this trinket, right? It's first of all, it's your best single target trinket, and second of all, you can use it in Mythic Plus as well. And so, if you're a raider and you have access to everything, you would just want to get Screams of Forgotten Sky and Astral Antenna, and those would be very good Mythic Plus trinkets and single target trinkets. Or you could also get a Ritual Forge and have, you know, just a litany of trinkets at your disposal. The heroic version of this is also pretty good. This is now we start getting to more where it's a little bit maybe not as good as the Mythic Stone Idol, but again, you'd have to simulate it for your character to see for sure. But you know, it's a very good trinket to have. Let's see what we have next here. It's the Interloper boots, of course, we already mentioned that. Interloper's boots are so good to have for Mythic Plus. If you don't have any yet, go defeat the Demon Hunters on normal. Even though you're a Mythic Plus player, get some Interloper's boots. They're very good for you. They go with your cloak, right? And then for Mythic Plus items, so let's say you're a Mythic, so this is going to be a group of players as well. Let's say you're a Mythic Plus player, and you only do Mythic Plus, right? You don't even do raid. You don't care about the raid. You have no access to raid trinkets or anything from raid. What you would want to do, so you don't have access to Interlopers, all you care about is Mythic Plus items. What you're going to want to focus on is a Cursed Stone Idol on Myth Track and a Pacemaker on Myth Track. Those are going to be the best trinket combination for Ret Paladin that come only from Mythic Plus. And there, other than that, there's really not much else. Because first of all, there's less stuff in Mythic Plus to get anyways. I believe you can get weapons, and we're going to talk about weapons overall here. So the weapon conversation is just kind of a separate conversation, and I'm just gonna go over with how this works, okay? So some of these weapons are going to be available either from Mythic Plus, from raid, etc. I want to go over how the weapons work because right now I have a crafted weapon still, and a lot of people might have a crafted weapon still. In my opinion, the best weapon is a weapon at the highest item level. So you do not want a crafted weapon unless you have to have one. I have not seen a Myth Track weapon yet, so I still have my stuff. Now I have my stuff ready to switch over if I do get a Myth Track weapon, but I do not have one yet. And so at some point, if you have access to a Myth Track weapon and you do not have one, that also needs to be a consideration to use on your Cartel chip. Okay? And if you do that, so let's say you have a crafted weapon in bracers, what you'll want to do if you have crafted weapon and bracers and you get that myth-track weapon, right? Let's say you get it from Cartel chips or something, right? For however you can get that. I'm not sure if the Mythic Plus weapons are available, but I know some of the raid ones are. And so you will switch to a myth-track weapon, right? Then you'll put, instead of having the Dark Moon thing on your bracers, you'll switch that to Dawn Thread, and then just craft your belt and also put Dawn Thread on that. And that's kind of the way you kind of want to do that. This will only net you a little bit of DPS overall. In single target, it nets you a little bit more, by the way. But it only nets you a little bit in Mythic Plus, but it will net you. And I do think just in general, it's better to have that, even if, regardless of what the Sims say, just from playing it enough, since these embellishments have been out, I just do think that it's just the slightly better play to do as well, regardless of Sims. So that's another option with your Cartel chips if you have a myth-track weapon available to you. Now, you can do the same thing with Hero Track. If you're not a myth-track player, you can just scale this down, right? If the highest gear you have available to you is Hero Track, then you would want a Hero Track thing. However, almost everybody should have access to a crafted myth-track, because you can get gilded crests even from delves and stuff. So everybody should be able to have this. But if you have access to a myth-track weapon, that's where you would take it over the crafted weapon. So I wanted to make that clear as well for everybody. I think that covers about everything. Basically, the best trinkets are off Dimensius and Lumathar. Those are like the best overall trinkets in the game. Pacemaker is probably like the third best overall trinket in the game. And then you have things that kind of specialize more, like Eras's Ritual Forge specializes in single target. And then you have Curstone Idol, which isn't terrible in single target, but it kind of specializes in Mythic Plus. So those are kind of like, 5 of the trinkets you want to be looking out for, right? In those kind of orders. You want to get the Interloper boots, of course, and you want to get a myth-track weapon. And, hopefully that was all put together well enough. I tried to really put this together for everybody because we have Legion Remix coming out. We have all the alpha news coming out. I don't want to forget about the people that are on live still playing the game, and having fun playing the actual retail version of the game right now. And so I wanted to make sure I hopefully got all that out for you guys. And hopefully I did that in a comprehensive enough way. I know it's a lot of information to be throwing out all at once, but I tried to separate it a little bit instead of just regurgitating all of it out together, I guess. So hopefully if you have questions, I can try to answer them down below. But yeah, as always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. That helps me out the most. I need more subscribers so I can get into alpha. If you're already a subscriber, I appreciate if you would check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.